Hi there. Welcome to Thriving Life Show. I'm so happy to see you here. Listen, today, given what's going on in the world, I want to ask you a question. The question is, do you know when you're leading by frequency instead of by force, by your vibe instead of by pushing things, how much more they flow? Have you ever felt that? And when you're in that forcing, do you ever have an issue with trying to get out of it so that you actually are back into the flow again? You ever had that struggle? So, and maybe you've had full weeks or full years or full decades where there was no leading by frequency. Everything was just survival mode, forcing things, making it happen, surviving your day. I'd love to hear in the comments how you relate to that. I'd love to hear, what your relationship is to either being led by force or being a leader who's led by force and how that's pertained to you. We dive in today. We're going to talk about how it is that we get to uh, actually understand why we get into this place of force and making things happen and pushing. Then we're going to understand what you can do to transcend that and transmute that in minutes instead of continuing to just be in that place of pushing. And finally, we're going to talk about how to really get results that are unexpected and beyond what you imagine, kind of using these tools. So I hope you're ready for this conversation. I know I am, because it's easy in these times of great change to be affected by some of the factors that cause us to get into pushing instead of actually receiving. For everyone all over the world, just make sure you subscribe and like us. And certainly, if this speaks to your heart, then send it to someone you love who you know it'll make a difference for. We really appreciate it. It makes a huge difference for the podcast. Also, finally, um, we are we are really pleased and so excited. I am. I mean, I can speak for me. We'll be taking everyone out of the spell of what's going on in the world right now and what's going on in your life and into uh, a beautiful place with tremendous food and incredible, beachfront and all sorts of stuff, to be able to reset, to be able to remember yourself, to be able to come back to what's important, to be able to get back in flow, speaking of which, to be able to really understand who you are and why you're here in times of great change. That is happening coming up in November. And we welcome you to actually go and check out the voyage to Costa Rica, where literally for 5 days we'll be working directly together, and I'll be assisting you and helping you build bridges while you are talking to this, the ocean, the sunrise, the sloths, the everything. So you'll see that link in the comments. You'll also see it up above my head, probably, to just go and check out that voyage to Costa Rica in November. All right, you guys. So let's get to the work at hand. And it's all about leading from frequency instead of from force. Well, first of all, why would you even do that? And what does it even mean? Leading from frequency means that you're actually inspiring people forward. You're calling them across the bridge. Leading by force means that you're behind them, coming from fear, pushing them across the bridge. And this could be your family, it could be in your business, it could be in any aspect of your life. Let me give you a little example in my life of what it might look like, and I'd love to hear yours in the comments. So, when it comes to lately, I remember I remember actually being in a meeting, and I remember looking at our bank account, and I knew we had to pay all of our staff, and we had some extra expenses because we were prepaying for some things we were doing later and all that kind of stuff, and I hadn't really planned properly, and I got into tremendous fear. And then I talked to my staff about like, "Oh my gosh, we need to get some more people in one-on-ones, or somebody needs to sign up for our community, or, so I just got into this fearful place. And, although I didn't talk like that, because I don't talk like that, but inside, that's how I felt. And even though it was calm and grounded, you can get that my frequency was probably a little bit like pushing, "Well, what do we need to do this? And what do we and I really feel like we should do this." And I would talk calmly, but the energy underneath it was, "Oh my gosh." Have you ever had a monetary thing where you got a little freaked out about it? And so what happened was, of course, we didn't make a single sale. Nobody came to play. It was so interesting. And then I just dropped in and I remembered, so this is me shifting. I remembered, and it actually was a result of talking to a client that very day, and the difference that our work had made, and how they were able to didn't matter what was going on around them in their family, because they were having a really tough time. They were able to stay in their presence and neutral, and as a result, they were able to move mountains in their family and say some things that actually brought everybody together and transcend what could have been a real disaster. And I remembered then, it's like, that's why we do this. We do this because you and I and all of us are pieces of the puzzle of heaven on earth, and we have the distinct honor. I have this distinct privilege, and so does my team, of being able to support people in finding their congruence with the flow, their alignment with the natural way that life was always meant to work, and to help them find and understand the skills and the wherewithal to live in that thriving operating system in overflow. And nothing touches my heart more. And all of a sudden, I'm like, this is not about me. This is not about the bank account. This is about this entire, my whole reason for being is that there are people that are struggling and are stuck and are sabotaging themselves. And literally through the journey of my life, I get to pay forward what has freed me as a privilege. And it inspires me to get up in the morning. It really does. And from that place, within 24 hours, right? Within 24 hours of shifting my vibe, all of a sudden the team was saying, "Hey, why don't we do this?" And people were phoning me left, right, and center. In fact, it just happened now. I had this lovely human reach out to me who I haven't talked to in a while, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, we're totally supposed to work together." And just that kind of thing happens it happens instantly. It's actually quite something. So, the next thing is, what is it that causes us to be in flow? What causes us to be in flow is the remembrance of the bigger picture of the dream that's dreaming us. I'm going to say that a different way. For every single person on earth, there is something that would get you up in the morning and have you go to bed feeling incredibly uh, fulfilled, knowing that you did exactly what you came to this beautiful planet for. Especially now with all the polarity happening, there are so many opportunities to make a huge difference, from the grocery store and the clerk you talk to, all the way to how you be at your business, or in your team, or with your family. And because that's true, and knowing that we can remember that we're either adding to the frequency of solutions or we're adding to the frequency of the fear and the polarity. And that's the choice. You're either right about what's wrong, or you get to find fulfillment and a sense of meaning about this life. Maybe these days, not so much about happiness per se. It could just be about that your life has meaning, right? And you feel expansive. So what are the 3 reasons we get taken out of that level of remembering who we are and why we're here? The first reason is that in general, when we look at the news or when we look at, I don't know, when we start having arguments, we get into fear. We start trying to prevent bad things from happening in our lives. And by coming from fear and focusing on what could happen or the worst case scenario, instead of coming from wisdom, there might be some prevention to do. But when we come from fear, instead of from inspiration about the things we need to do, it's like investing. Oh my God, the price of Bitcoin is going from this to that, and I better pull all my money out. That's not really being in alignment or flow. That's actually forcing instead of leading your financial future by your vibe, right? So the first thing is fear. As soon as we get into fear, our amygdala in our brain is engaged, and that amygdala is looking for ways to change circumstances to stop the fear. And it could be anything from yelling at someone, to making poor choices, because your fear is guiding you instead of the future that's inspiring you forward is guiding you. So that is the first thing that comes to mind when it comes to why we actually move out of that incredibly amazing place, right? The second reason that we move out of, or we are in fear, or we get into that trap of forcing, is that the culture that we're embedded in is all about constantly pushing. It's not about taking time to listen. I remember being on a plane, and sitting beside an executive to some company, and we ended up talking. Oh, by the way, this has happened at least, I'm sure at least 12 times, sitting on a plane next to an executive. And they're like, no, oh, so when are you going on vacation? I'm not. I don't have a vacation for 4 months. It's really hard, and they're like, in order to get results, you have to push. And what if in order to get results, it's the opposite? In order to get the results especially that are transcendent of your expectations, they're even better than your expectations, you have to be able to tap into the level of consciousness where the resources of the entire universe live, such that they can co-conspire for you to grant you results that are transcendent of what our pea brains could possibly come up with. So the second thing that gets in our way is not taking that spaciousness and enrolling ourselves in the culture that says, go, do. The only way to accomplish is it's all on you. You're it. You're the one that has to do it. We really have a culture that, especially in North America and in more developed countries, it's very interesting because the culture is very much lone wolfy. It's up to you. Go, do, fast. There's no spaciousness built in at all. And isn't it interesting that it keeps us in that groupthink of like, go, do, fast. And when we go, do, fast, and our days are just filled and packed, actually or perceptively, right? When we let the pressure be put on us, or we accept that we're supposed to put pressure on ourselves because of the culture projecting that on us, what happens is there's a sense of have to, need to, must. When the truth is, and by the way, it begets a culture that continues to do that because it really seems that way. You start living into exactly what you create. The truth is, all it takes is a pattern interrupt. And the pattern interrupt for me is to go out in the garden and to take my own mini vacation. At least 4 or 5 times a day, I do that. I go for a walk, I take a mini vacation, I go pick pears up the street, I go and watch the sun go down over the mountains, which is like a mile walk up the street. That disruption opens you up to the resources that actually cause an acorn to grow to an oak tree. Do you know how that happens? Do you know how a cell divides in a baby? A baby's body is created? No, you don't. Do you want that level of the miraculous? Because if you do, in order to live at that level of the miraculous, you actually have to let the universe, consciousness, life itself in. And when you say you're the only one that can make it happen from a place of forcing things, there's no room. There's no place for deeper wisdom to get in. None, zero. And if there's no place for it to get in, neither do the transcendent ideas that would cause a quantum leap. See what I'm saying? So you got to decide whether you want a quantum leap or not. So the third thing, so there's the cultural aspects. There's the immediate fear, like knee-jerk reactions where you don't create spaciousness because your perception is there's an emergency that just happened, or there's an emergency that's going to happen that hasn't even happened yet. And the third reason why we start forcing is total habit. You started it when you were young. You went to school. I went to school. I mean, I created a habit of getting straight A's. I mean, I have relinquished the perfectionism gene from my family lineage a long time ago when I had migraines. When I was in high school, how it played out was a ton of acne because I was constantly putting myself under stress. And that stress constantly had me feeling like I was under the gun. In fact, my entire identity was wrapped up in getting straight A's. Now, that doesn't mean I was smart. I'm going to tell you, I think most people, if they worked as hard as I did, could probably get straight A's. It's not like I had some natural, incredible, but at least I had enough smarts that I knew that I could get A's. But man, when I got an A-, that was not good for me. So the pressure I put on myself came from my ancestry that was all engineers. It's kind of like having accountants or doctors or surgeons or anyone that needs to get it perfect as an ancestor, or just an ancestor that already had the perfectionist gene, regardless of what their job was, right? And so because they had to get it right, I took it on from my ancestry. And I thought the perception was if I could just get it perfect, I would be happy. But apparently that did not work because really the perfectionism always took me out of the happiness. I wasn't fulfilled. And so I kept forcing until the acne gave way to incredible migraines. And in the middle of a migraine, I had a pretty big aha that this pressure was not mine. That forcing thing that I did wasn't even mine. It was my ancestry's. And from then on, slowly but surely, what unfurled is this feeling that there was something more available from life, that life had more for me, that that greater wisdom had already been working on the answers to all of those prayers. And as I understood physics more, I understood that I couldn't have a problem or a wish without the solution already existing. You can't even imagine the problem without the solution being there. And if that's true, my focus changed. I asked the question, how is it that I actually get to the place where I'm a solution magnet, where my vibe shifts, and where, as I understood physics, I understood that my frequency, my mood, my my state of being, my default state of being was one where if I could understand myself as a conduit for all of the ideas that get generated from the problems, if I understood myself as a receiver, a receiving magnet, really, and if I could embody the skills of someone that instead of trying to prevent bad things and control my situation so I could predict the outcome, I became someone that was interested in creating upon the problems that have been, and I'm catalyzed by the problems and then inspired by solutions. All of a sudden, my leadership would change from forcing from fear to actually inspiring, being inspired myself by life itself. But then further, as I embodied and collected evidence for that, that is how life actually works when I get out of the way of it, being a beacon and an example and the embodiment of being able to live that way. And of course, that frequency changes everything. I was just talking to one of my clients who is a runner, and it's really interesting because she runs 100, 200-mile runs. Is that just nuts? And just by her doing that and from her passion for doing that, it's like, oh, what could I do that's my version of doing that? She barely has to say a thing, right? She doesn't have to tell me how to do it. I'm already inspired. And that is leadership by vibe. It's by what you're passionate about, you know? And so what are the things that are required? Let's say there are 3 things that are required in order to get to the place where you become a passionate magnet for all of the solutions you've been waiting for. Does anyone want that? Do you guys want that? Would you like to be just magnetic and receive the solutions that you desire? So there are 3 things that I was thinking of before we came on. And one is that when I'll give you guys an example. Everyone has had this. You're on the computer, right? You're typing away on something maybe that you're inspired to work on. Maybe you're doing it 2 hours or an hour and a half, but all of a sudden something won't upload or something won't download, or you can't find the page you were looking for, or your computer glitches out, or something's going on. Now, I got to tell you, whenever that happens, it's a redirect. So everything that happens to you is either a validation, a redirect, or an inspiration. So inspirations are things like maybe you're listening to this right now and you're inspired to, change and work on your frequency a little bit more just because I'm talking about it. Validation is when, you were just thinking a thought and you look at your watch and it's 11:11. It's like something that affirms what you were just thinking of, right? That you're in alignment. And a redirect is when something isn't working. And when it isn't working, it's either your vibe or what you're doing isn't what's in the highest to be done. And the more quickly you can get from pushing, the more fluidly your life is going to work. So I thought to myself, what are the 3 questions I really ask myself when I get into that place where I'm pushing hard? And I used to actually keep pushing for hours to try to make the computer work. I could do it. I'm going to do it. Anyone ever done that? So the 3 questions I ask are, first is, does this actually need to be hard? And my answer is generally no. It doesn't need to be hard. Do I know that it doesn't have to be hard, right? So that's the first question. The second is, am I willing to get back into flow and to change my frequency? That's the second question. Am I willing to do that? The third question is, What is it that feels good right now? What is it that feels good right now? Anything other than what I'm doing that doesn't feel good, that's not working. What feels good right now? What can I go out and do to completely shift my focus, shift my vibe, shift my everything? Who can I phone? What can I do? Who can I talk to? What could I watch? What comedian? Anything. So that's the first thing to do when you're in one of those states where your frequency isn't where it's most productive, let's say. The second thing is, so the first thing is ask the questions. The second is get a pattern interrupt. But a pattern interrupt, if everything's not working for a while, so now I'm talking about when things, when things, when you're kind of hit at a glass ceiling, you're ready to make a shift. Like it's time. You're ready to make a shift. So the first tool is something that I use so automatically that I don't even think that I know that I'm asking those questions. I've embodied them and like I have a divine, so I'm going to tell you the third one before I finished about the second. The third one is develop an intolerance to resistance. Develop a divine intolerance to not being in flow, right? Because you need that in order to stop yourself before a week goes by and you're still forcing things. You get what I'm saying? So develop a divine intolerance to suffering. I have that. And I don't want to push. In fact, right now is so interesting in my life. I'm finding myself really not pushing anything because I'm wanting to receive, and it's been a couple of weeks now, and I could get frustrated or I could get, but I'm not. I really just am in my knowing that everything I need to know about the circumstances I'm working on, it's all coming. It's all good. I just go and do a lot of things that I love and feel good and hang out with people I love and all that kind of stuff, right? So the second one, let's get back to that, is a pattern interrupt. So this is for that sort of time where you're like a week, a month, or a year, or whatever you, or maybe you've seen your life, kind of having these certain patterns that do not feel like flow. They feel like pushing. They feel like you have to force things. You force love. You force relationships. Maybe it's you're always forcing about money. Maybe you're forcing, and you are ready for a deep and delicious pattern interrupt to actually get yourself to a place where you are immersed in the land of flow, where you are with people or in a situation where everything is transcendent of the patterns that you live in. You're not even in the same you're not with the same people, you're not even in the same location. It's like something that truly causes a pot stirring, but also gives you an activation of what's possible, right? It really requires such a shift. And hi, Mary Ellen, Susan, and Karen. So my request is, so a perfect example of that, no kidding, is actually the Costa Rica trip is designed specifically for if you're feeling it's time. Like it's just time. It's time to step out of what you've been in, step out of the issues, the life, the relationship, the monetary whatever, right? And it'll be put in the comments, but that's what that is designed for. And you're immersed with my team, and we're going to be talking about how to make a quantum leap the entire time by having a blast and doing the things that the opulent place. See, Costa Rica is all about opulence. It's overflow. It's like Hawaii, right? So that's the third thing. But I mean, you got to understand. I'm really wondering and curious, can you come up with a time where you've actually made a quantum leap? You've actually gone and done something that's so unusual. I just recommended it to a client the other day of you need a 3-day retreat just on your own. You just got it. Now that's not immersing with with the up level, next level, sometimes that's an escape. And you got to watch when you do those retreats or you step out of what you're doing, that you're not escaping just to return right back to the same vibe as what you were having before. Unless you embody a new way. Hello in Pickering. Unless you actually embody a new way by being immersed in a new way, it's very hard to make a quantum leap because otherwise you're just using the brain that caused the problem in the first place. You understand? So sometimes I notice for myself, I don't know about you guys. Have you ever noticed that you'll go away in order to take a break from pushing, but you just come back and within 2 hours you're pushing again? You can't do it from that vibe. I've done that for sure. Just take a break and then go back to pushing on something that just feels yucky, right? We want to be in that receptive mode. And I want you to know that's available all the time. And you can literally shift yourself to the default place of receptivity whenever you want. So we've got the 3 questions, right? We've certainly got the activation to it. And we most certainly have available and I always say to my clients, it's like these 2 words are your sign that it's time for a major pattern interrupt. And those words are, it's time. Like I'm over it, right? All right, you guys, I hope today was helpful. Truly, I hope today you can use those 3 questions. I hope to see some of you in Costa Rica on the great trip, the voyage back to your expanded self and beyond those glass ceilings. We're so grateful for you, so grateful for you being here. Make sure you like our show, make sure you follow us, and make sure you pass it on to someone that maybe has been forcing and pushing their whole life. Geez, Louise, it's so unnecessary. Everything gets to come to you, my friends. I want to thank my dear Adam for doing the production in the background. And I want to thank all of you for just being courageous in these times of great change and being willing. So biggest hugs ever. And until next Friday, we'll be in a new location next Friday. I'm going to be at the Association of Transformational Leaders. So that's going to be super fun. And definitely wish me some good vibes today with my frequency, because I'm presenting let's say a vision or a movement that we're starting around how people can come together instead of separate for the very first time. So send some good vibes and we will see you soon.